Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week, Happy World Mental Health Day.
Thank you very much. And we wish everybody a happy World Mental Health Day. It's a big day in the calendar.
Kindness has become such an important part of people's lives, hasn't it? Because it is those things that are making a difference to people's lives at the moment.
Well, do you know, it's really important because there is so much negativity, so much bad news, that actually to have something to offset that, to give people some hope and give people some encouragement that, you know, we are going to get through this. We're going to get out the other side.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Tackling the stigma.
Hey, it's Mick Coyle here. I hope you're well. Things are a little bit up in the air at the moment, and I'll tell you for why. This week's show is a little bit different, and to be honest, it's a little bit short as well. Episode 176 of Mental Health Monday with the UK Minister for Mental Health, Nadine Dorries, MP. Now, I've been trying to get Nadine on the show all the way through lockdown, and it's not been possible. She became available, though, this week, quite short notice. It meant I was able to ask her about the Where's Your Head At campaign that I mentioned on last week's show. The idea around pledging an act of kindness and doing something positive at a World Mental Health Day, which has just gone this Saturday. Now, delighted to say she heard about it, she wanted to take part. So Nadine Dorries herself pledges this week to be part of that and to pledges her own personal act of kindness. So the conversation I was due to have this week, which would have gone out, episode 176, with Clark and Carrie Carlisle, I'll move that back 1 week to episode 177. It'll be instead. It's a fascinating conversation. Looking forward to bringing you that one. But this one very relevant for World Mental Health Day 2020 with Nadine Dorries, MP. I started by simply saying to her, Happy World Mental Health Day.
Thank you very much. And we wish everybody a happy World Mental Health Day. It's a big day in the calendar.
Absolutely. It's so important, isn't it, that we recognise the day. This year, big focus on kindness. We're asking people up and down the country to pledge an act of kindness. And that's something you've been able to take part in as well yourself.
I'm going to invite my elderly neighbour around to my garden. I hope the weather's going to be okay this weekend. And I'm going to invite her around for a cup of tea because she lives on her own and she hasn't been out very much at all. She's quite fearful, obviously, of COVID. So we're going to invite her around. My girls are at home. So we've all been together since before lockdown. So I'm going to invite her round to the garden and to come and have a cup of tea with us.
And for those people who are thinking, you know what? I've not pledged so far. Maybe I should pledge. Maybe I should mark World Mental Health Day with a pledge. What would you say to them?
So I'd say, you know, in your act of kindness, look for an elderly neighbour or somebody who's on their own. And because there are a lot of people who are now afraid to go out to the shops like they used to go to the clubs that they used to, or, you know, even to libraries and the things that they used to do, who are quite lonely. And I think loneliness is an awful thing. So if you know anybody's on their own, then please, people could look for those who are lonely, who have had to give up all the things that they usually do, like their clubs and their library and the people that they used to go and visit, and are on their own. And see if there's anyone you know who's like that, and then offer to have a cup of tea with them or just check up and see if they're okay. Because I think people are missing conversation, and I think that would be a good thing to do, a kind thing to do.
Kindness has become such an important part of people's lives, hasn't it? Because it is those things that are making a difference to people's lives at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it was really important during lockdown. We saw lots of acts of kindness across the country. I think people felt that spirit of wanting to support each other and help each other. It was almost, I mean, the amount of people, I've lost count, who said to me, people from Liverpool as well, it's got a wartime feel to it, lockdown. And, you know, we're going to go into a pretty difficult winter now. And we can see that we knew as soon as the temperature began to drop, things are going to get a little more tricky. And it looks like they are. And we're going to have a difficult winter. This is going to be a hard winter. And I think to help everybody get through this winter, we're going to need those acts of kindness even more than we ever did before.
So I guess a campaign like this, asking people to pledge kindness, is an important one.
Well, do you know, it's really important because there is so much negativity, so much bad news, that actually to have something to offset that, to give people some hope and give people some encouragement that, you know, we are going to get through this. We're going to get out the other side. And this is how we do it, by helping each other and supporting each other. It's a really important, positive message.
Do you want to take the opportunity maybe to invite your constituents, members of the public, but also your fellow MPs to take part in our Pledge Kindness campaign?
Yeah, I'd encourage everybody, across the country, whether they're MPs, my constituents, or not, everybody to take part in. If people can actively think about acts of kindness and actively believe and think that's something we should be doing every day, if they could just do one act a day, that would be 65 million acts of kindness a day if everybody in the country got involved in the campaign. So yeah, no, of course.
You mentioned that people's attitudes have changed given everything that's been going on. People sometimes living alone, anxious about the future. We don't necessarily know what's coming in the next few months, and that uncertainty can have a huge impact on people's lives, can't it?
Yeah, and so it's really okay and it's really understandable to feel both anxiety and apprehension and fear at the moment. People call it a mental health issue. It isn't. It's a well-being issue. And for most people, they will go through this, they will draw on their own resilience, and they will come out of the other side. It's not a mental health issue. It's a well-being issue. And, Every Mind Matters have produced a website. People have had 2 million downloads. People can go onto that website and get the tools that they need to help with their own well-being through this winter, through these coming months. And that is really important that people do that. And I know there are organisations all across the country who are reaching out and helping people to get through with their well-being. There is a difference. You do have to unpack well-being from mental health, but it really is important that we have in place support for people, which is out there to help them get through.
I guess it's why World Mental Health Day this year has come at a really good time, if you like, because it's an opportunity to flag up some of those services. What are the things that you're able to signpost to today for people saying, okay, well, where can I go? What can I turn to get myself ready for this period of time?
Okay. Well, I wish it was called World Mental Health and Wellbeing Day. I wish it wasn't just World Mental Health Day, because, there's a difference between somebody who's suffering with an eating disorder, which is the most serious of all mental health issues, because 1 in 5 people who have an eating disorder lose their life as a result. So that's the most serious of all mental health issues, to anxiety and general well-being. So I really wish we actually could isolate the two, one from each other. But there is a huge amount of help out there. I would direct anybody who's not feeling good to go to use the internet, get straight onto Every Mind Matters. But there's something more important than that. And it really is vitally important, and that is physical exercise. I've learned recently, as a result of my job, that somebody who exercises for 45 minutes 3 times a week and gets themselves out of puff, so there's a bit of cardiovascular in there, after 6 weeks, somebody who's feeling depressed will actually get as much benefit from that exercise as somebody who starts medication. So physical exercise is not only good for our physical health, I think it's underestimated how good it is for our well-being and our mental health. So I would say before that, if you're feeling low, if you're feeling down, reach out to your usual support networks, reach out to friends and family and the people you would normally turn to for support. It's a bit more difficult while we're going to be in the kind of measures that we are. But where you can, using iPhones or iPads, reach out to people, talk to people, reach out to your friends. Get that physical exercise at least 3 times a week, 45 minutes per session. Sleep is vitally important. People underestimate how difficult things are to deal with if you're not getting a good night's sleep. Do not let your sleep pattern actually roll into, staying awake all night, sleeping at odd times. Get your 8 hours sleep a night and eat a regular and good diet. Those 3 things, people say, oh, well, that's a given. Well, it isn't actually, because so many people, when they're beginning to feel low, stop sleeping properly, stop exercising and stop eating healthily. Put those 3 things in place. They are your platform to then build up on your well-being, your mental health. Then go on to Every Mind Matters and reach out to people. And that's how you will get through the period that we're coming into now, which is, if you like, the second wave of the pandemic. Putting those things in place will actually support people, wrap themselves around those 3 things, and they will get through this. Most people will. But I'll just caveat that. If you've got all those things in place, and if you're going on to Every Mind Matters and you've found your feelings are getting worse, and they're dipping lower, then seek medical help and support. But the exercise is so important.
Obviously, a lot of our listeners and a lot of our readers have got young families who've been through that first period of homeschooling. They've had the difficult times, and they themselves will be focusing on those websites that you just mentioned there and trying to get into that activity that you mentioned as well. But they're also looking out for their children as well and trying to assess whether or not their needs are being met. And that's a crucial thing, isn't it, for those young families?
So Every Mind Matters launched initially for adults. And now on the 8th of September, they launched the children's Every Mind Matters. And it's really powerful and it's really good. So to parents who are worried about their children's mental health, go on to Every Mind Matters for Children. And the tools are there. The guidance is there to help sustain your children through this second wave. And, I would urge everybody who's got children, even if you're not worried about your children's mental health, just to go, because there'll be things that you learn on there that you didn't know before.
Do you understand when people feel a sense of almost despair, particularly when they see the headlines and this sort of the second wave coming? They think, oh, I thought we'd got through this. I thought this was over, and now it's coming back.
Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. I don't feel brilliant about it myself. I wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, another day of this. And it's, if you're a social person and you're used to having, the house full on a Sunday because everyone comes around for a roast, and you're used to going out with your mates on a Friday night, and I still do that at my age, if you're the kind of person who has a social life and you're used to being, an outgoing person, if you're a bloke who's used to go to the match on a Saturday, if you're used to going to the pub and meeting your mates, it's very, very hard because our worlds have been turned upside down. And what we felt, life was for living for has gone. And it's incredibly difficult for everyone, and I understand their frustration. But what I would say is this: there is lots of talk about vaccines, on whether or not a vaccine will work or whether it won't, and lots of, how long is this going to last? Is it going to be for forever? Are we going to have to live with this forever? What I would say is there is a huge amount of work going on out there at the moment on treatments and in the drug world. And whether we have a vaccine or we don't, we are making advances all the time. And so what I would say to people is it's not hopeless. There's a lot of work going on, because this is the biggest threat to us that we've ever faced, probably, since the Spanish flu. It's the biggest upheaval we've had to go through probably since wartime. And we're doing everything we can here, down in West. I know it may not feel like that to people, but I can promise you, everyone here is working 7 days a week. We're doing everything that we can. And what we need people to do is to realise that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. We're all going to look back in the future at the winter of 2020 and think, wow, how do we get through that? What an awful time that was. And maybe it will make us appreciate more when we've come out of what we've got going forward. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are drug companies all over the world working frantically to find treatments. So even if we don't find a vaccine, we'll find something to help with coronavirus, not be the fatal virus that it is at the moment.
You're working 7 days a week. Your colleagues are as well. Can I ask you on a personal note, what are those things that you're finding are beneficial to keep on top of a sense of well-being?
So I write books about Liverpool, actually. I write, and on the days that I don't write, I find it more difficult. So I get up very early in the mornings. I'm usually up by about 6, and I'll write for about an hour, and that is my therapy. But I think it's because I'm dyslexic, and dyslexic people are used to being creative and thinking out of the box a bit. And I think that also helps me with that. So that's what I do. But I think it's my 3 daughters as well, keep me going, because there are some days when I just feel really very low. And, having my girls and my writing and friends, I reach out, I reach out to my best friend in Manchester. We all need someone to reach out to. And that's how I keep going. And I've got a great team that I work with, and they're all very good. And they put up with me without any complaints. So, yeah.
So there you go. That was the conversation with Nadine Dorries, MP, the UK Minister for Patient Safety, Suicide Prevention and Mental Health. Now, I'll be absolutely honest with you, there are 1,000,001 different conversations to have with Nadine. We were talking about World Mental Health Day this week. I've asked her whether or not we can do something again in the future, potentially to get her to meet some of these incredible organisations that we've had on the programme. And she was open to that. If that works and we can make it happen, absolutely brilliant, but it's not been something I've been able to box off and have much wider conversation about the government's response to the pandemic, the government's response long-term to mental health in the community. It's very much about the act of kindness, but also every mind matters and the support for that particular service, which is important, of course, for World Mental Health Day. We'll get Nadine on the programme again to ask those questions again, I'm certain of it. So apologies for being a relatively short edition of the programme this week, a relatively short episode. It's a long one next week, if that's any consolation to you, with Clark and Carrie Carlisle, and I can't wait to bring that to you. So thanks for checking out the programme this week. It's Mental Health Monday.